Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am the housewife historian and we are talking the Real Housewives of New Jersey today, guys. They're like the gift that keeps on giving, I swear. It's just insane. We have to talk about a couple of major things. One, that some outlets are reporting that Frank Catania is a liar. In an interview, he had stated that Joe Gorga, basically asked him not to go to Teresa's wedding, and Frank said that he had to go to Teresa's. Anyways, guys, we're going to break all of that down. If you've been hearing that over the last couple of days, we're going to break it down, why they're calling Frank a liar, why I think that he just misspoke. And then we're also going to talk about the tweet that was sent out by Margaret Josephs calling her best friend Laura basically scum and her husband a raging drug addict. This is going to be important, guys, because there's some things that we have to talk about, and one of them is going to be Louie's family, because we're going to be seeing Louie on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. He's now married to Teresa. He has family, sisters, and parents, and we need to know some things. All right, guys? But before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, turn those notifications on. You guys never know what's going to be going on in the Housewives world, and it's important that you have your notifications on. Okay. Where do we start? Let's start with Frank Catania, okay? First of all, let's remember that Frank is a man, okay? He is part of the Real Housewives of New Jersey Husbands Club, if you will. I've told you guys before, I really think that New Jersey is going to be looking to profit off of the men if they think that they can get something together that would have a following of viewers that they can make some money. But because these men are on the payroll like no other franchise we have ever seen before, the men of New Jersey do receive a paycheck. And for that reason, they have to do press, guys. They have to. It's non-negotiable. They have to do press. So Frank has had to do a lot of interviews. And excuse me, guys, that's my coffee. Whether they were pre-planned, pre-scheduled, I don't know. But they were right around the time that all of this happened, this huge blow up at the finale with Teresa and Melissa about Teresa's wedding. And Frank was doing a lot of interviews around this time, and he said in an interview, Joe, I'm sorry, it's your sister, but I'm going to the wedding. And I think he just misspoke. I think that maybe Joe Gorga didn't come directly out and say, don't go to Teresa's wedding and support me, and don't go to it, stay home and show loyalty to me. I think that Frank knew Joe Gorga well enough to know that that was what Joe Gorga was thinking. So before Joe Gorga could try to say something like, hey buddy, don't go to my sister's wedding, you better stay and support me, Frank was like, bro, I already know what you're thinking, you're effed up, I'm going to your sister's wedding and you should go too. That's what I think happened here, and I think Frank just accidentally misspoke. Fast forward a couple of weeks, I'm sure Melissa saw and heard the interviews and didn't like the sound of it, because I don't think Joe would. I'm sure he wouldn't, whatever. Somehow, someone heard the interviews, didn't like it, and so Frank, in his next set of interviews, made sure to say that Joe Gorga did not ask him to not go to the wedding. That he simply had stated, listen, Joe, I know it's your sister, and I'm going to her wedding. So, in reality, guys, Frank and Joe have known each other for a very long time. And I don't think Joe Gorga would ever want anyone to think that he would say, pick your loyalty, drawing a line in the sand, go to my sister's wedding, or be my friend, one or the other, and you can't be both, right? I don't think Joe Gorga would do that with a lot of people, because he wouldn't want, that shows some sort of weakness in him. But I think to his really close friends, his people that he really thinks and he counts on that are loyal to him, I think that he would definitely want them to not go to his sister's wedding. I think he makes an exception for Frank, because Frank is his friend of all of these years, and he does know Dolores, and they were married, and it's just so much history between all of them. I think that Joe understands that. Had Frank not had that rapport with their family for all these years, I don't think Joe Gorga would be so understanding, right? I think that he would not have, I think he probably didn't like Frank going to the wedding as it was, but again, he's not going to state that. I just don't think it's fair for news outlets to be calling Frank Catania a liar whenever I think that he may have just misspoke. It came out wrong. I mean, we can't expect people to be perfect 24/7. And again, when you know someone really well and you spend a lot of time with them, you know what they think. If you're a smart person and you watch people, and I'm always watching people because I want to know. I don't want to say that I want to predict. Maybe it's my anxiety, my anticipation anxiety. And so I watch people to see what they do and how they react to situations. And then after you're around someone for so long, you already know what they're thinking. After all of this happened, Joe and Frank get together after this, the smoke clears. Frank probably knows what Joe's thinking a lot before Joe even says it, because we're human. We're used to nature. We it's hard for people to change. So that's what I think. I threw my opinion in there for you guys. I don't typically do that, but for me, Frank Catania has all the love and respect. I've told you guys before, I advocate for a missing child out of New Jersey. Please go follow missing child _ New Jersey. She has really keep this advocacy alive. And Frank has helped with this dear mother who doesn't have her daughter anymore. She went missing. I post the little girl in my community page. If you get an opportunity, please go to my community page. Take a look at the little girl's picture, especially if you are from the New Jersey area. Take a second out of your day. Go check it out. Anyway, guys, Frank helped. He was the first one to help. And I can't say a lot on it, right? But I can tell you guys, he's a good guy. Like, he is a good man, and he's one of the good guys. And so I personally, but also professionally, am going to advocate for Frank and say, I don't think he was out here telling lies in these streets. I think that he's a man. He doesn't always know what to say. I think he might, men always say the wrong thing. They don't know what they should say, what they shouldn't say. And so I think that there was so much going on between Teresa and Melissa and Joe and everything. It was just chaos. And he said the wrong thing in a couple of interviews. And that doesn't mean now he's a liar. Okay, let's just cut him a little slack, right, guys? Anyways, we also have to talk about the fact that Margaret Josephs has posted on August 24th. Sorry, I'm thirsty. Margaret Joseph posted on August 24th and said that Laura was a liar, she was a scum of the earth, and her husband was a raging, jobless drug addict. It was something like that. I'm going to post it in here so you guys can read it. Yeah, it was something like that. It was something like, she tweeted it on August 24th, so you guys should go check that out. I just think it's so crazy. She calls the best friend a wannabe. She says, like, you were interviewed for three times on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. You never made the cut, not even the one that Teresa set up for you. And then she says that the husband's jobless and he's a drug addict. Now, so funny, because remember, guys, do you guys remember when I did a video and I told you guys about Louie's dad being in sobriety? Nobody else talked about this except for me. I went on, I found this beautiful written post and information about Louie's dad getting sober in his 70s. When he was like 71, he decided to give up all drugs and alcohol and mind altering whatever. And so he's been sober, because I told you guys the way that Louie talked to me and the things that he said sounded like someone who had been in some sort of a program, not in a bad way, but a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, codependency, mental health. The list is endless. But these people, when you're in counseling, in group sessions, you have a way that you speak. And I didn't know if Louie had picked up on the way that he spoke, from maybe the fact that his ex was in the mental health field. I don't think she's a licensed psychiatrist. I think she did do some training, and she does do mental health, but I don't think she's like a licensed psychiatrist, because they actually started her business together, because he helped put her through a couple of years of school, I think, if I understood correctly. But anyways, the way that Louie spoke to me sounded like a lot like you would hear in counseling or group sessions or AA or NA or codependency, Al-Anon. It could have been any of those things. He just had a way that sounded like someone who had in the mental health field, either had been a patient or was in the mental health field. Anyways, he just recently posted and congratulated his dad on the 7 years of sobriety. I thought that was really beautiful. I want to know what your guys think about that. And I thought it's so strange that Louie is on here posting and congratulating his dad on 7 years of sobriety, while Marge Joseph is on Twitter calling Laura's husband a raging, jobless drug addict. Now, Laura responded to Marge and said that her husband is clean. He's been clean for 6 years and that he's retired. And Marge said that Laura was a court stenographer. That's what she said. She did something in the courts, right? I just had to throw that in there. I don't know why. Anyways, made a mental note of that. So we have Louie congratulating his dad on his 7 years of sobriety, Marge calling Laura's husband a raging drug addict, and then Laura coming out and saying that my husband has actually been in sobriety for 6 years. So that is wild, right? Because obviously Louie has a respect for people that could be suffering from drugs and alcohol addiction, because his dad obviously suffered for a long time. Because they made it sound like it was really heroic of him to get clean in his 70s, which it is, but what did the other 50 years look like? Did the kids suffer? Is that why Veronica, does this forgiveness program? I don't know. But it is to give the man a lot of credit to get clean in his 70s. And so Louie is showing support for his dad, and Laura is showing support for her husband, and meanwhile Marge is on Twitter calling him a drug addict. So it's just not a good look on Marge. It's just not a good look on Marge Josephs. It's just not. I don't know what would be a good look for her, but this is not it, okay? I'm just saying, if you're her publicist, help her. Don't let her get on Twitter and be saying stuff like that. It's not a good look. There's a lot of people in recovery that watch Bravo. There's a whole recovery community that watches Bravo. Don't offend those people, okay? I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on this entire situation. Frank Catania also said that the fight between Melissa and Teresa and Joe and Louie was physical, that they had to break the ladies as well as the men apart from each other. I'm assuming that would be Louie and Joe trying to beat each other up, and Melissa and Teresa. Except Melissa doesn't ever seem like she wants to throw down. She is more of a yeller and moves her hands and her hair and such. But I definitely think Joe Gorga has a lot of anger in him. I would hate to think that he would take... I feel like Joe Gorga is carrying around all of his anger about Joe Giudice, and he's reliving that with Louie. It's almost like an unhealthy trauma bond between the two of them, because of the fact that Joe Gorga has not healed from all of the pain and anguish that he endured. Not saying that all of that was Juicy Joe's fault, just saying that he endured a lot of issues and things that I don't think he could have settled because of the fact that it was Teresa's husband. Juicy Joe felt like he took Joe Gorga under his wing, helped him showed him how to flip houses. Juicy Joe would say that Joe Gorga should be thanking him for his career and the money that he's made, because he's the one that showed him how to do that, and that he helped him build his first, $1 million home that he sold. It's the home that he lived in with Melissa. that was allegedly sold to a big time retired NFL player for like $3.5 million. Now, to hear the story of Joe Gorga tell it, Joe Gorga says he built his first house, and when Juicy Joe and Teresa come over, Juicy Joe criticizes everything about the home, and Joe Gorga is heartbroken. Blase skip, right? I don't know. I just get the feeling that Joe Gorga is carrying around all of the anger and pain that he has towards Juicy Joe, who Juicy is living his best life in the Bahamas and Italy. Like, he is not bothered by Joe Gorga. But Joe Gorga is taking out all of that on Louie, right? That's what I think. How could he hate Louie so bad? He hasn't even known him long enough to have that kind of hate built up for somebody, right? Like, he hasn't been in enough situations or family. Like, Teresa and Joe still have their parents. So I think that also fed the dysfunctional monster that ran their family for so many years, because Teresa's parents were living above her garage in the loft because their home had been, blase skip. Go back to my other videos. I don't want to get into it because I don't want to get eaten up in the comments and everyone back and forth, but we all know there was a situation with Joe and Teresa's parents' home, Joe Gorga using it for collateral, a bad business deal, things fell through, and Juicy Joe ended up building a loft above their home. You can see this in like season 1 or season 2, and moved Teresa and Joe's parents into their home. So that meant that Teresa probably spent a hell of a lot more time with them than Joe and Melissa did. And that's just sometimes by default. No one ever recognized that either, that a lot of times women gravitate towards their mom and their side of the family, and men gravitate towards their parents, their side of the family. Except for, when they become married, usually the husband will start to go with the wife, right? Joe would go with Melissa to Melissa's family, just like Juicy would go with Teresa to Teresa's family. But it fed the monster. It was a lot of back and forth. Teresa with her parents, voicing her frustrations. They're living together, so Juicy and Melissa are feeling like outsiders. Do you guys remember when the dad was in the hospital in like season 5 and Melissa didn't visit him? It took her like 4 or 5 days to get to the hospital to visit him. And meanwhile, Joe Gorga, her husband, was working all day. She was at home with the kids. Joe was expecting Melissa to go to represent him and their family to see his dad in the hospital. And then Melissa said she showed up after a couple of days. That's what she said, like in her confessional and whenever her and Teresa kind of got into it. However, when they broke down the timeline, the dad had been in the hospital for 4 or 5 days before Melissa made it there to visit him with the kids. So, I don't know. I don't ever feel like I felt like Melissa. I think if they were in front of her and they needed help, absolutely. But I definitely think that she would put her family above Joe's family. And I think that this whole cheating allegations, I don't know really what more could be going on behind the scenes that we don't know of, because we're hearing so much terrible stuff. But I do think that Melissa is very guilty here, and I think that's why she had such a strong reaction. And I think that if Melissa was going to do Strippergate / Melissa having an affair gate, she is smart enough to get it right the second time. Let me say that again, guys. The first time any of this came out, Melissa was a dancer. She was a stripper. Well, allegedly it turned out that she wasn't a dancer or a stripper. First of all, she said that could never be. She never worked for that man. Blase skip. She denied everything. Well, then a little bit later it came out that she worked at the strip club. She just wasn't a dancer. She was a bartender while she put herself through college to be a kindergarten teacher. Sounds a little suspicious to me. I would just hope that if this was going to happen again, that they would get it right. And I think this time they have. And the only reason that I really seals the deal for me, I mean, I've said, guys, David behind the velvet rope, he, everything that he said about seeing them out in New York City, the publicist, the relations between them, we've talked about that before. Just the fact that who correlates with who, and Nick and his wife and Melissa, and the photos that we've seen of them together, the photos of Melissa and him. It's just very sketchy. But what really sealed it for me was when I remembered a couple of seasons ago about Melissa and Joe's marriage and how they used that as a storyline about how he was upset, how she was going out all the time and she was out late and she wasn't home and she was doing press and she was doing this and she was doing that. And right now, whenever like all of this came out, it clicked in my head like she was cheating on him. That's exactly when she was cheating on him. And then COVID hit, right? So we all housebound after COVID hit. And I think that she's having to do a lot of damage control behind the scenes because Joe has a very fragile ego. And for right now, he may be playing that there's no effing way my wife would cheat on me. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe eventually Melissa will find someone she cheats with that she will leave Joe for. I don't know. Because obviously Nick and her are not going to leave each other's spouses. They're both married. They don't want to be together in that way. They both have children. Like, they're not trying to break up their families. It's not that sort of thing. It was more of like a physical attraction. They were all drinking together, blase. But if she came across the man with a big enough wallet, I mean, I guess I'm asking the same question that Teresa's been asking. I can't believe it. But I mean, would she, if a guy came along that had more money and that I don't know. What do you guys think? Because it's very messy. It's all just very, very messy. Like, Joe and Melissa, I think, have a good relationship in a way, but I think that Melissa definitely knows how to manipulate him. Like, to work behind the scenes. Like, I don't know if Italian women get a class like growing up from their mothers on like being domesticated but still somehow using some form of reverse psychology and all these different methods to get what you want from your husband. I feel like that a little bit. And I feel like that's why Teresa used to tell Melissa, like, control your husband. You know you can control your husband. And it kind of making sense a little bit right now because I do feel like Melissa has a sort of hold over Joe Gorga. And he really listens and does as he's told in a way that doesn't look that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't look that way to the open eye, to just the average person, but to people that have been watching them for 12 years, Melissa's calling the shots. She always has been calling the shots. Always. And I don't know if it's her sex appeal, if it's her whatever you would call like her, not her, like her, like how good she might, like, I don't know, suck on a popsicle. I mean, it has to be something like that because he's still so mesmerized with Melissa and really does what he's told. It's just amazing, actually. So I really think that she's having to work behind the scenes, keeping Joe, I mean, she convinced him not to go to his own sister's wedding. If it weren't true, why would she react this? There's just so many questions, guys. I want to know what you think. What do you think about Marge calling Laura's husband a raging drug addict? What did you think about him being in sobriety and Louie having a down in sobriety? Like, then we have Marge attacking. I don't know. It's just all very wild out there in New Jersey. It's like the wild, wild west out there. Melissa hasn't really, she let out the podcast with her and Joe. We saw that. We listened to it. We didn't see it. We saw it. Kind of heard their perspective on things that transpired around before and after the wedding. And then we haven't really heard anything since, guys. And I feel like this is a tactic by Joe and Melissa on purpose. Right now, we have everything going on with Beverly Hills. And I think that Melissa and Joe didn't anticipate the public's reaction the way that they did. They didn't see people coming out and supporting Teresa. They thought that everyone would be supporting them. And when they didn't get that from the public with the podcast and the Page 6 and the TMZ, they just decided to zip it. Okay, they did go out and buy Antonia a brand new Porsche. People are saying like a Porsche is a sports car. They're not very safe. A lot of people compared it to Gia getting a Porsche 3 years ago. Like, are they competing with, they always say, Teresa always said that Melissa copied her. She always said that Melissa would use the same photographer as her for the children. Then she took her hairstylist. Then she took her makeup artist. Like, I believe that stuff. We've heard that from behind the scenes. People verify that stuff. That's why I think she's been with Priscilla for so long, because Priscilla showed loyalty towards Teresa. And before, Teresa would get stylists and Melissa would take them from her. And so I think that I want to know what you guys think. Don't call me a tree hugger in the comments. I do love Teresa very much because I've been watching her for so long. I have a love for her, but I have a love for Melissa and Joe just as well, guys. Okay, we can all love it. Bravo, family. Bravo, celebrities. We don't have to hate each other if we have a difference of opinion, or if we think that Melissa is cheating or she's not cheating, allegedly. Whatever the case, guys, we don't have to, have hate for each other in the comments because we have a difference of opinion. So, doesn't mean I'm a tree hugger because I think that Melissa may or may not have had extracurricular activities outside of her marriage, okay? And it doesn't mean I support Melissa if I say that, Teresa, whatever, is greedy or mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, okay? My opinion. I want to know what your guys' opinion is. Make sure you leave those comments. I want to know what you guys think about Margaret. Are we going to hear about these lawsuits from Margaret? We know that she getting sued for over $160,000. Allegations from her business partners that they had invested in these homes. They were going to flip these homes. They were going to make a quick profit. And how now Joe and Marge are living in the home and they won't get out. And the business partner is like, what the hell, you guys brought us on board. You said we were going to flip these houses quick, make money. And now you're effing living in our investment home. We haven't seen or heard much